What's up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and today we're going to be talking about writing humor stories, comics, animation, whatever it may be. And today I'm in a kind of a different location, a nice cozy location. I got the sloth. How do I point? This way. I got the sloth hanging out, just chilling there. Mr. Sloth. I got the little fire there going, so it's nice and cozy. And how much better to be cozy and warm up when you have a friend with you to talk about humor stories. Maybe a friend like Mr. Jim Lujan. What's up, Mr. Jim Lujan? How you doing?
Hey, how's it going, man? I'm also known as the California Sloth.
Oh, all right. See, so I knew there was a reason we had the sloth in the picture. So man, how have you been? I guess first of all, let's let people know who you are. What the heck do you even do? Why are you on a Marsh Makes Comics channel talking today?
I want to touch the logo to feel the power. I'm Jim, and my name is Jim Lujan, and I do animation. I do animated films, a ton of animated films. Just a treasure trove of entertainment. And I've also do a lot of the music, well, almost all of it for my films. I did a lot of the voices, but lately I've been using a lot of my friends for voice talent. Not using, but you know what I mean. I'm an animated filmmaker.
Nice.
And I kind of do one-off things, sort of like a graphic novelist, but with films, if that makes
You're
any
like
sense.
a one-man animation anthology, I think.
I guess so, yeah. I guess that would be me. I'm the Frank Miller. No, I don't know what I am.
You're the Frank Miller of Ghettomation.
Yes, I think so.
Once in a long time ago.
And Marshall, before we go any further, I'm trying to do the math of how long you and I have known each other, because we ran together, I believe, wasn't it the Fanboy Radio circles of things? Weren't you in that?
Nope. It was I would say it would be more
Art and Story. Art and Story. Yeah, okay.
So
yeah.
it's weird. In internet years, that's like a million years ago.
yeah, we're like old men.
So. Well, I don't know if that has to do with how long we've known each other or just that we're old, but
I like to think it's how long we've known each other.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So yeah, man. I don't even know, man. Like, we had you on one time before. Apparently, that video is disappeared from the internet. You looked for it, I looked for it. We can't find it, so we had to do this again, anyways. And you got a new project out, the Pleasure Beast. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into talking about writing this stuff.
It's like like the Johnny Carson show I'm on to promote. So, thank you for having me on too.
Yeah.
So Pleasure Beast, I'll tell you a little bit about what that's about. It's a 28-minute film, so it's almost like a television episode or a pilot, you could say. But it's a film about this housewife named Kathy. She's from Simi Valley, California, and she's got her little nuclear family, and everything's cool. And she's a member of the church, a member of the community and everything. Until one day, this figure from her past shows up, and he's a realtor, and kind of threatens her comfort and her pristine life with the truth of her past. So it's kind of a film about what we'll do to protect our secrets from the past and who we portray, we want people to think we are. So, and there's just a lot of weird madness that happens in between, and things get very out of hand, and it's got harpsichords in it. So if that doesn't sell you, I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, totally. And also, you talk about secrets from the past, and I heard it while I was watching the movie. You obviously got Barry White to sing a little passage in the movie.
Yeah.
That hidden secrets. How'd you get Barry White, man?
Well, we did a seance, and it was the really most sexy seance you'll ever, that's actually my good friend Neeson, and he sang. Neeson sing. If you go back to my catalog, Neeson, almost every theme song I've done, or anything that has vocals, pretty much he's the voice of. But I actually just pitched his voice down. But that's an old. We've been doing that trick for a long time. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's like,
thank you.
It's like one of those things where it's like, even if you don't like make music or art or whatever, you can tell like something has changed with that voice, and I feel like it makes it even more funny. So
yeah. I mean, I've noticed with some of my other films, like when I'll have somebody, I had my cousin Mike do the lead singing voice of a female character in a film I did called Infinity Pool, and that adds to the creepiness and funniness factor tenfold. Like it's way funnier than if I would have even had a female sing that part, because he's singing it like a female and he doesn't normally sound like a female. And then I pitch the voice up. It's just, I don't know. It's all about experimentation, I guess.
Totally, I would agree. And it comes off that way, and it's just really cool because like the stuff you come up with, man, for these videos, it's insane. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about, like, again, this kind of writing humor type of thing, and I feel like it goes well with what you do. I don't think, it's funny because one of the things I think that's hilarious about your videos is like, even in that singing or other things, it's like it's played straight, like it's played serious.
Oh
But
yeah.
so insanely ridiculous.
Yeah. That's to me, the funniest things in life are the things that sometimes are serious and they're just funny. And not because they're supposed to be funny, almost because they're supposed to not be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always liked exaggerated humor more than punchline humor. So I like things that are just funny in its nature and necessarily doesn't have to have a point to it. Monty Python's big on that too. They're just so absurd, but it's not like they have a 1-2 setup punchline. I just like things that are innately funny and situations that are innately funny. I think it's really funny to have, I don't know what. There's an older guy in this movie that just wails on a V-neck guitar in church really loud, and that's, to me, is funny. And there's no punchline to it. It's just funny for what it is. Yeah. So that's kind of where I approach the humor from.
Yeah, he's like in the church and he is really into it, but he is like hitting those death metal riffs like no tomorrow.
Yeah, he's shredding for the congregation, and it's actually kind of based on a true story, but we'll talk about that offline.
That's hilarious.
But,
I mean, a lot of this stuff, the funniest stuff is kind of like, almost, I feel like, based on true events, and like it's like you wouldn't believe it if you wrote it, but it actually happened type of thing.
Yeah, and I know everybody writes humor differently. There's different styles. Like there are people that do like set up, punchline.
Right.
And I understand that, but I always think the funniest stuff is the stuff that is funny to you, not what's supposed to be funny. Like you're well, I have to have a beat, and then a joke. I mean, that stuff works, but also whatever makes you personally laugh. And even if you don't think it's that funny, like Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, was a good example of that, because he would do things that were completely like beyond the punchline and gone too far. And then they were around him, everybody didn't kind of think it was funny, but you could tell he thought it was really funny. And that's what kicks you up to another level.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's just what's kind of like music, whatever sounds good to you. Because if you're like, that's not a real guitar chord, but if it sounds good to you, it is a real guitar chord, and it just doesn't matter. It just sounds good.
Yeah, totally. I could get on a whole rant with that because, I make music too. And that's one thing that I think is really cool about your videos as well. But before we get into that, I do want to just talk about like, so when you're coming up with these videos, these animations, I think you called them one time mini epics,
Yeah.
which I love that term. What like where does this come from? Do you and first of all, where does it come from? And second of all, do you have like a writing process, or I mean, is there even words written down on a paper or on an iPad or anything or computer, or is it just something you kind of know what the story is going to be, you start drawing? Like how does coming up with one of these kind of work?
Usually, I'll know what the scene's going to say. And if it's just me recording, I barely have any. I mean, I have notes, but I don't have any script. If it's somebody else doing lines, I'll write the script out for them. I don't know. You know what? I think, again, kind of in relation to like what I think's funny, where it's not a punchline. I think with me, when I come up with an idea, it's an atmosphere. So I'll come up with an idea for, I want to do a story about Eastern European rappers, and then I'll incorporate them into something. And then I'm like, oh, they have to have somebody that's kind of like centering the story. So I create a music agent. And then the music agent's also I have a friend that I want him to do a character, Deacon. So I had him do a character called Naughty Boy, and I built the story around that, knowing where it would go. And that's a good example of how I come up with stuff. So originally the nucleus of that idea was I wanted to have a story that I wanted to do something with, like an Eastern Europe. I wanted to make up a language and do rap in that language. And that's how the group Dollar Money was born. So, It was all for that. Like, there's an excuse to do that,
Yeah.
But one thing I do is I do come up with the endings as I'm building a story.
Mhm.
If I don't know how it ends, I've done it where I didn't know how it was getting, and I built it as I went along. And to me, it's not as fun. That's just me, not as fun, because then it's so much energy just to create these things, that when you're using that extra energy to figure out what you're going to do next it's like you're killing yourself, so I at least have to have a roadmap of where I'm going, and then I can veer off the path as I'm going there, which I always do. But
that's kind of crazy too, because like um with animation, I mean, it's such a beast to create. Um, and I think, luckily you've been doing it for a while. I think you have kind of, from what I heard before, you kind of have a system of how you do it pretty well down. And so I think you can go faster than maybe when you first started doing it, I'm sure. But it's such a beast to make, and then to go kind of on tangents with animation, like, I guess that would happen before you actually start animating, or do you have, like, a bunch of drawings left over sometimes, like, "Oh, I went in this tangent, but I couldn't stick with it."
you know what I do? So I build my things linear. So that's another big thing. I don't talk about that a lot because I forget.
Mhm.
But I do build them linear. So like the beginning is the beginning, and then the middle's the middle, and I don't jump to the end and do the end. I build them as I go, which gives me, I think, an advantage, because then I can watch the film over and over and then go, oh, that doesn't work. Or, what would be really good right now? A food fight, it gives me the opportunity to feel the pacing like an audience member. And I don't know, just to me, when you're using a script and when you're working with other people, that's way harder to do. I mean, I worked on Revengeance with Bill Plimpton and his team, and I didn't dare do that. I didn't dare to walk. What would be better? Because then you look like an idiot. You look like you don't know what you're doing, like, an amateur hour. So I realized that when you work with a team, you got to kind of like stick on the path. Now, when it was Corey and I, we Corey Kerr
Mhm.
Of CoreyKerr.com.
Yes, sir.
We did a project together called An Unchained Aggression. It was just an experiment. We wanted to work together. I drew all the drawings. I plotted it out, and then Corey animated everything. And I realized, if I ever want to to murder a human being, I'll just give them that amount of work to work, and they will work so hard that they'll die. Because I was driving Corey crazy, I think, because I work so on the fly, and I would like want to change directions, and Corey's like, no, like, and so at one point we just said, we're going to Corey said, we're going to storyboard this thing out, and we'll just stick to the storyboards, and like, beautiful, and we were able to do that from that point on. But I realized that method doesn't. No wonder my brothers always wanted to kill me when we recorded together, because I would record songs, and I do like bass drums and rhythm guitar, and then my brother Steve, okay, do a guitar solo, and he goes, let me hear it, and I play it, and he go, and like, rewind it, okay, ready, go, and he's like, I don't even know the song, I just make something up, and it would drive him crazy. To this day, he still reminds me of that all the time. It's like Ed Wood. I just like, oh, that was good. The practice take was good enough. Let's just use that.
Yeah, you kind of sound like how I am too. I'm very much like that when I create, and
impulsive. Yeah, we're impulsive.
Yeah, I think it's a fun way to be. And it's like you said, some of the stuff is almost like experiments and stuff, and that's really cool. Is the thing you made with Corey Kerr, is that on your channel too?
Yeah, I think it's on his channel, but I think it's also on mine.
Yeah.
Called if you go to CoreyKerr.com, it's called An Unchained Aggression. And if you just look up Jim Lujan and Unchained Aggression, it was like a little mini sequel or little offshoot of a cartoon I did called Unchained Fists, which is the longer version with a character named Unchained Wayne, and a lot of fun. One thing I would love to talk about. I've never talked about this ever on an interview or anything, and you're the perfect person to ask. But like, one thing I've patterned my cartoons after, although I'm not a comic book guy, I'm not a collector, and I was at one point, in my younger years, but I'm very influenced by the whole comic book world, especially graphic novelists, because I love the idea of what graphic novelists are basically doing what I do, or I'm doing what they do. They're making these like mini movies, these mini movies, and then they'll do like one or two a year, or one every 2 years or whatever. And then they move on to the next thing. I love the idea of doing one-offs. And I love the idea of, once you've done a bunch of one-offs, to be able to go back and go, I'm going to do another one of these. You build up a catalog that way. But I'm extremely influenced by guys like Dan Clowes, and it's funny. Another number of people that I know are my friends that I'm influenced by, that do graphic novels and stuff like that. But I love that. I think that's really, really cool. Graphic novels are to what I do versus people that do episodic things. That would be more like floppy comics, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very different way of approaching story writing, and one I feel like that's, I don't know. It's just a different way. I feel like it's kind of maybe a more advanced way, and not a way that I'm also kind of similar to you. All the comics I've made have kind of been one-off ideas I just come up with now, and I actually love the idea of that. I love that with your animations, like if you go down the list of all your videos, none of them are the same length. They vary, like all everywhere.
Yeah.
You got short ones, you got long ones, you got really long ones, which is amazing for somebody who animates their own stuff. But it's cool because it's like you kind of just get an idea and you run with it. And I just find that form of creativity really inspiring, and it's just a fun way to create, like, and why not have fun with it? Like, this stuff is so hard to do. Like, why not just kind of take that tangent and run with it like that? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a fan of that way. And you come up, I think, with lots of interesting, sometimes even more interesting surprises than maybe you would if you're like, okay, I have to set with this structure, and I want like these certain points to happen, and
Yeah.
I'm really trying to stick with this theme or something like that. Those kind of things
Yeah.
I find hard to follow, as opposed to kind of going on a whim and seeing where that follows.
Yeah. When I first started doing this stuff, it was after Pulp Fiction came out. It was a few years after Pulp Fiction came out. And that really influenced me. And I know a lot of filmmakers say that Pulp Fiction influenced them, but they always end up having guns pointed at each other. What Pulp Fiction did to influence me, sort of like Star Wars, it's the whole idea of having a universe, that's indirectly related. Like every cartoon doesn't feature every character, and you're learning new characters, all the time. But that really influenced me, and it also influenced me in the way of just making weirder decisions with the story. It goes all of a sudden goes this way. It doesn't have to be this. It can go this, and then all of a sudden go over here. Or it could go this and then get weird here and then go that, it just does. It's just whatever is going to keep people interested. So yeah, that was kind of the roots of it.
I think, and it's funny that you say that, because I was going to bring this up too, is that like with your stuff, and maybe it's just because it's created by the same person, but with your stuff, I feel like, and I know you've intentionally even made some of this happen on purpose, but I feel like all your stories, they are, even though they're all different characters and sometimes there's some interwoven, but they're all in the same world to me. Like, and what I also feel like is interesting. So are you live in like LA, or you live near there?
Yeah,
So,
I live right outside of LA. Yeah.
I feel like what these stories are is like you hear all the things about like people going to LA and wanting to going to Hollywood and things like that, and wanting to be an actor, actress, or wanting to make it big time, and I feel like your stories are like all the broken dreams of that.
Yeah, they're like cautionary tales. You know what's funny? When I started doing this stuff, no joke, when I started doing this stuff early on, like there was the whole Pulp Fiction influence. There was the Coen brothers came around. That was an influence, but also huge influence on me were these things called the Jack Chick tracks.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what they are, right?
Oh,
They're
yeah,
these little cautionary tales, and the artwork in them is outstanding. It's excellent, but they're just so over the top. But they always have, and this is like the formula. If I do have a formula, it always starts out, with a kind of a sublime, kind of not that extraordinary scenario. Guy, he's a barber, and then you go, oh, this is the world of the barber, and then he gets a customer come in, and the customer's like, hey, have you ever smoked crack? And he's like, well, no, I have, and then by the 5th or 6th page, he's smoking crack in an alley, and he stabs a hobo with his scissors, and he goes, why did I do that, God? And he calls out. But like, I love the whole setting something up, and then something completely bizarre happens, and then there's redemption at the end. Except my version of redemption doesn't always tie everything up neatly, because that's not how life is. It is redemption, but it is like, okay, we didn't win the lottery at the end. It's like it kind of I like to leave things open-ended and kind of open for interpretation. But I don't like to cheat the audience either. I don't like you to watch something all the way through and you're like, well, you never said what you were promising, Right. I might say it and you're like, that's not what I expected you to say, but at least I say it, or at least I show it. Yeah. But yeah, Jack Chick tracks, those were like a big influence on me. I have a bunch of them too.
Yeah, I have a bunch of them too.
I love them.
Case somewhere. Yeah, no, I've thought about making like my own version of Chick tracks or whatever too, and I just have never actually ended up doing them. But so that's interesting. These are Jim Lujan's animated Chick tracks.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of like my creative formula, because I never had an idea where I said, well, I want to do a story about somebody who goes on like an American Idol show, and then they make it big, and then and then they go out and they feed the poor. The end. It's like, I know that's great, but it's like there would be something weird happening in the middle. There has to be like a conflict.
Yeah. Well, I think your stories are usually about the American Idol characters who
that lose.
They can sing.
The guy who doesn't even make it to the audition, he gets tackled by security guards because he demands to go inside, and then it follows his career after that. That would be exactly what my.
Yeah. Have you ever done an American Idol one? You should. That definitely seems like something up your alley.
I actually have an idea that's somewhat like that, but not that. But I definitely should. There's a lot of. I know there's. I want to do a bowling movie at one point. I have one. There's all kinds of stuff. There's just too many to ever get to. I know that. Unless I live to be 200.
So speaking about that, do you have like a bunch of stories lined up of what you want to do, or you just kind of make up the next one when you're done? Or
I've been pretty good in the last 10 years about sticking to this. I have ideas that are formulated, kind of. Mm-hmm. They're not finished, but they're kind of formulated, and I always go back and dig through my back catalog and say, "Here you are, remember me?" Like it's a plant. Like I watered it and it was a seed and it started growing. Then I walked away and came back and it's a big old tree. Right. Pleasure Beast, the one that's out now, was another one of those. It's an idea I had probably 3 years ago. Before that, something like Infinity Pool. That idea was probably 2 years old before I did it. So the next thing that I do, and I already told myself I'm not taking a break, but I'm taking a break. I'm going to mine my old catalog and I want to do some not process videos, but videos showcasing some of the characters and showing some of the, get people interested in my back catalog a little bit. And then I'm going to go to the next one, and I have an idea what the next one is. But by the time I get to it, that idea will be 3 or 4 years old, probably. It's already 2.5 years old. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you have like a pretty interesting way of going about it. Now, I haven't been tracking specifically because I know Revengeance, like really kind of, you were just focused on that for a while, but I remember like you were putting videos out like for somebody who's doing animation pretty darn quickly, like, and you've got a lot, you've done a lot. You already have a huge back catalog. And speaking of that, everybody, there is a link in the description for Pleasure Beast specifically, but please go into Jim's back catalog. I mean, if you don't have time, there's, some 5-minute ones,
I got a playlist called Choice Cuts.
Yeah.
And that's like some of my shorter ones. And then I got one called, hey, I just noticed right now, we're already deep within this interview thing, but I just noticed there's chat people, and my wife's in the chat. I just noticed her. Hello, honey. She said the new cartoon.
She has a cautionary tale for you too.
It's not about her. And if it was about you, would I ever say it was? I would tell you it's not. Yeah.
Yes, welcome to the stream, Leanne. Thanks for tuning in, and that's cool to see you supporting Jim like that. That's awesome. And so let's see. We're gonna so we're talking about putting these out kind of consecutively. I don't know, how I don't know, how long does it take you to kind of I guess it takes probably different lengths anyways, because you have I think you have a 2-hour movie, or a 1.5 hour movie. You've got that one with the rap group, right?
Yeah, with Counterclockwise. That's an hour long. Yeah, that was the first feature length thing I did. Counterclockwise in Foreverland, and that thing went on Amazon recently, and it's got all kinds of views. It went crazy on there. It's really cool. Yeah, but I don't know, man. That one was meant to be we had talked for a while, Deacon Burns and I, and Kaya Rogue and I, we had talked, and I'd always been saying, oh, we need to do a movie one day. We'll do a movie. And that one just came together like that because I knew the genre. We wanted to do some kind of sci-fi space thing. And then their music guided me. which is what
Yeah.
it's funny because that's what happens when I do a film. Like the music will almost all of it will be done even before I start the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I mean, what'll happen is I'll do some music, just messing around. I'll do some music and I'll get inspired and I'll be like, oh, this would be really good for a dinner scene. And then I'll write a dinner scene into the thing. So that happens a lot, not the whole way through, but it does inspire key scenes. And then what sometimes happens is I'll do music that inspires something, do the scene, and then throw the music away. Like, I don't want to use it after all, but it still inspired the scene.
That's pretty cool, though. I like that. And you know, it's funny because I'm ramping up. I kind of took somewhat of a hiatus from comics for about a year and a half. But I still was doing videos here and there. But you know, now I'm coming back to doing comics. I've been working on this little horror story thing, 3-page thing with Jason Alexander, also known as Fogbreaker. And so that's been fun. But one thing I've been thinking about is I'm gonna start doing like smaller comics and stuff like that. Like even like I really want to do like 1-page comics, and like a lot of them, like just different experiments, like kind of like what you're doing.
Like your marsh tracks. Now's your time.
What's that?
That could be your marsh tracks.
Yeah, totally. And same thing though. Like I want to like make music that kind of is inspired by the comics, and then vice versa. I want to make comics that are inspired by the music, you know. So that's, I don't know, it's just cool that you said that you do that. And
because you know what, you're a creator first and foremost. You're a creator. So comics are just a genre you express yourself in. Just like I don't walk around going, I'm an animator. Excuse me, animator over here. Can I get some water? I'm just a creator. You know, if animation went away tomorrow, I'd be a painter. If I couldn't paint, I'd be a musician. If I couldn't be a musician, I'd be a banker. No, okay, no, I don't know what I'd be, but I'd always create.
I think a big part of what you do too is you're a storyteller, because you know, and that's one thing that's interesting too, is like your animations, they are like cohesive stories. They're really like good. I've always been impressed by the storytelling. Obviously, like you're studying film and stuff too, because if you sit there and say, like, watch Pleasure Beast tonight, everybody watch Pleasure Beast tonight, and then when you're done, watch it again and pay attention to the cinematography of it. And you'll see though, there is actual like things you would see in movies, TV shows, animations and stuff. Like you're using certain kinds of transitions, and I mean, you have to do that with humor. You got to hit things at the right timing, or else it kind of falls flat, you know?
Yeah, this is, again, I say this sometimes, and this is so sacrilegious as for an animator to say, but I mean this with respect. I don't watch that much animation. So thank you, Joshua. I don't watch that much animation. I just don't. The stuff that I like is always usually live action. Also, I was thinking about this earlier. My wife will testify to this. I just get in these like zones where I'm like fascinated with something for 6 months or whatever, you know, and I think that really contributes to the energy level of a project that I do. To go back a couple of projects, Infinity Pool, the thing that inspired me when I did that one was we went to the Hearst Castle like twice in a year. We went at night, and that was the best, by the way. Hearst Castle's up north. If you've never been, you got to check it out. It's this giant. J. Paul Getty, I think, owned it, and they used to throw parties there in the 30s and the 20s and stuff. And when I went through there, I just felt like you could feel the aura of all of the debauchery that probably went on in there, you know, the high class debauchery, but also all the secretiveness, you know, like, you know, just stuff that, you know, behind closed doors, all the secret, you know, high powered, rich people.
Right.
And I just thought it was so interesting to me, like almost like a secret society. So that's kind of where that just sparked an idea for Infinity Pool to come along, because that's kind of what it's about in a way. But and then with, again, to go back to All That Glitters, at the time I just for some reason wanted to do It's just like a fake country rap, like a country from like Eastern Europe or something like that type, and make up a language and culture and everything, and then and do something with that, you know. And so I get in these kicks, you know.
Yeah.
These like and kind of, you'll understand this too. Bands do that too, and artists and music artists do that as well. You take somebody that, oh, this is their spaceman phase, or this is their, you know, when they were into country, this is their country phase, and this is their, they do that too. So
yeah, like I think it was Miles Davis, the Blue Period, or so. Or actually, that was an artist that had that, but he did the blue thing too.
Picasso did it, and Miles Davis did it. Yeah. David Bowie used to do it all the time.
Yeah,
you know, Milli Vanilli.
They had
all the greats.
They
all
had
the
a
greats.
short period.
They did a lip syncing phase. Remember that? That was good. That was so good.
Oh goodness. So, you know, something else that I'm really interested in too is like your like process, like as far as like you've been really prolific, and like I have kind of my hunches, but what?
No, it's not heroin. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well,
that hunch is out the window.
Maybe it's probably meth then. But
there you
go. But like, what is like when you sit? Like, do you sit down on a daily basis and you're like, okay, I got to make something? And like for me, like I have a problem. Like I got like creative ADHD or something, because like I'll sit down and I'm like, I got to work on comics. And the first thing I want to do when I have to work on comics is I want to work on music. And if I have to sit down and work on music, the first thing I want to do is work on some art or something. Like I never want to do the thing I'm supposed to do. Like, do you have a process of how you get to all this stuff?
Well, okay. For one, my wife's heckling me, by the way. She wrote Bella Twins because when I said I was fascinated with things, and that's like my latest fascination, the Bella Twins. Okay. Maybe they'll be in my next cartoon. I don't know. I realize that I cannot be without a project. I go nuts. Like right now, I'm without a project. And even without a project, I'm kind of making a project. My project is to go back to my old stuff and recycle stuff and show people, hey, these old cartoons, and here's my world, you know, to get people interested. That's like my project. I can't just sit here and go, I'm done with that project. Like a fish where you can't stop swimming, they'll drown. That's how I feel. I really feel that way. And I don't know, to be very simple with it, I don't watch a lot of TV. I really don't. I have friends all the time saying, oh, have you seen the show? Have you watched Beauty? Oh, it's so good. Beauty's so good. We're on season 11. And I just go, I don't watch a lot of TV. I once in a while I'll get fascinated with something, and then my wife's probably going to write, yes, the Bella Twins. But once in a while I'll watch a whole season of something. But I don't watch TV as a habit. It'll be on. If I'm drawing, I'll have it on. But that's a big factor. Think about it. When people are watching series after series, even if you're watching it as you create, yeah, Jim is super focused. It doesn't. I just got distracted now when you wrote that. What are you talking about? But yeah, when I work on stuff, I'm really like focused, because you know what? It is like a drug. It not even like a drug. It is a drug. It's just that a drug that makes people happy, other people happy too, you know. And it keeps my mind working, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't play video games really. I mean, once in a while, but not in a habit, you know.
So I'm assuming you have like a day job.
Yeah. That's another thing.
$1 million off of the animation.
I have always worked. So people think it's impossible. They go, you must do this at work, or you must do that. One practical example I'll give. I make my stuff on an iPad now, and for Pleasure Beast, I would work on it every day, like at lunch or whatever. I'd work on it. Just, you know, it really is a case of, and I'd working on it at home. It's really a case of, like they say, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. Yep. You just got to chip away at it and not stop chipping away. And if you're motivated enough You know, if you had a giant Rice Krispie treat in your living room and you'd go take a bite out of it every day, and then that thing would be gone in like 3 months, you'd probably die. But that's how I do stuff. I mean, I just keep chipping away because I want to, because it's like, you know, and there's been times where there was a time like around Revengeance where I didn't work for like a year. And the first 6 months was bliss. It was the best. I was so happy. I had a couple of checks coming in, you know, this and that. It was just nice. And then when the checks stopped coming in, I'm like, no starving artist for me. I'd rather be a fat worker than a starving artist, because I just didn't. For me to be motivated artistically, I have to be somewhat happy, or not happy, but you know what I mean. Like, I can't be depressed, you know. And everyone gets depressed. Everyone goes through stuff, but I just gotta. That's like my way out of it, kind of to keep myself busy and keep doing stuff. And it's a self-worth thing too. Because when we think you're good at something, you're like, I got to do this thing I'm good at, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that. Like, to me, I think of it like almost like a purpose type of thing. Like, you just kind of have to do it, you know, but you want to do it. Like, it's what you really want to do. And if you're not doing, I feel the same way. If I don't have a project, if you're not doing something creative, I feel like I start to get like, I'm itchy. Like I have to do some creative stuff. And the point you say about not watching TV, I mean, that's such a great point. I don't really watch much TV myself, you know, and you know, to me it's just like and I don't play video games, you know. Like, to me, my video games is like putting out YouTube videos and making art and making comics and stuff like that, making music. So, you know, there's that. I'm curious. You talked about working on it, you know, at lunchtime. Do you feel like you put in like a daily certain amount of work, maybe even when you get home, or
yeah, I mean,
you work
when
like after, like,
yeah, totally.
or...
Yeah, like there'd be times where I'd work on it for 30 minutes or whatever at work, and then like I'd hit like a spot where I'm like, oh man, it's not. I want to go back and do that, and I get home and I have to attack it. Again, even that goes in phases. Just like I get fascinated with things in phases, I get real creative in phases. Like, I got to finish this. And then I get hit that scene, and I'm done with that scene. I'm like, I don't even want to touch it, and I won't work on it for, you know, days. But yeah, there's a time like with the last 3 projects I've had, I have a Starbucks, and I know that's not the coolest place, but I have a Starbucks by my house. It's probably one of the closest ones to me, and it has a perfect area, like a bar that has plugs, you know, for your computer and stuff. And in the corner, if you sit in the corner, people don't bother you. They don't come over and go, oh, what are you working on?
Yeah.
And I would wake up on the weekends and I'd go there like at 6:30 a.m. and I'd park and I would work on stuff, and I'd look up and it'd be like 11, you know. I'd be like, oh man, Lan, you want to go have lunch? But every weekend I would do that a lot. And that was really joyful to me. Some people, I know it's not the healthiest habit, but some people, you know, instead would go on hikes, which is healthy, or some people, you know, would do that. And we do that stuff as well. You know, I'm not, you know, only like I have no legs because of my arch, you know, but at the same time, it's like, I genuinely love doing that stuff. Like, and if I could, of course you'd do it nothing but that. You'd work on your stuff all that. But the 6 months that I did nothing but that, I noticed in a weird way, it's kind of nice to have a balance. It's kind of nice to be denied something and then get to do it, because then you attack it. That's what I don't understand. Most of the people watching this have jobs, and most of the people, you know, have projects. And to me, it's like, why would you deny yourself working on your project to watch somebody else's project regularly? I understand there's certain things you're like, I got to see this. Mandalorian, I got to see it.
Yeah.
You know, there's other things too, but, you know, And then Leanne says, and I make her spell my name with a capital. That's the law. Jim says, it sounds like a feeling. Oh yeah, I always say this. It's like creative constipation. If you can't create, it's like you're constipated. Creative constipation. To me, that's how it is. And I'd rather have creative diarrhea than that. So.
Yeah, totally. It's, and I feel the same way though. You have to get something out. Like if I don't, and for me, it's really important to be publishing something on a somewhat regular basis. So that's my thing. Like if I haven't published something, I start to, even if it's something small, like a one-page comic or a song or even a video sometimes does the trick, or something like that. I get really antsy. I need to be finishing things, because I want to
Yeah.
have something that I've made, that you can see, a trail of, hey, he was actually creative.
Yeah. And everyone's got a story. Everyone's got like you don't know what people are carrying around in their psyche, a tragedy, a loss. I've got all that stuff. But and when you're not, when that stuff kind of tackles you and you don't feel like creating, it's kind of a double whammy, because not only are you not able to do the thing you love, you have the guilt of thinking I should be doing the thing I love. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you what, and hopefully maybe this will do this for somebody, because when I've watched other people, like the Artcasters guys and your stuff and Peter Palmiotti and just different creators out there, my friends that do interviews, it inspires me. It is like watching a great athlete or something like that. Like it makes you like, you know what, I better get out and run, because that guy's, it's kind of it is kind of a competitiveness too, but in a friendly way.
Yeah.
Because I don't even do comics, and I don't have that many animator friends, which is really weird. You'd think I only hang out with, I don't know that many animators, period. The ones I know I love. There's like a handful.
Yeah.
But just watching other people kind of get on a roll can help you get out of a slump. And it can also, even if it's somebody watching my stuff going, wait a minute, this guy's doing that? I can do that better than this guy. I say go for it. That's the thing. That's what I want to happen. I want other people to be inspired and do their own stuff. But don't always show it to me, because I don't want to see it. No, I'm kidding. No, but I mean, I get very inspired watching other folks, and I look for things also too, because I know you do this probably too. You probably look at while you're drawing or whatever, listen to other creators.
Yeah.
And then you start scouring, and then you start re-listening to interviews and everything. Gary Hodges is a guy that's on the chat. He's another guy who discovered his stuff, and I was like, oh, this is really inspiring.
Yep.
When I saw Gary's stuff, I said, this guy's doing that, I can do it better. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, I agree, and a lot of times a lot of people that come in my chat and stuff, they're the same people I follow. I'm very much inspired by my peers, for sure. And same thing, like a friendly competition type of thing. You can't help it. Like,
I'll tell you one thing, Marshall, real quick. One thing about your stuff that I've always loved is you're super, super, I want to say an open book, but like it never ever feels like you're faking it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, everybody, make sure to like and subscribe. It always seems like if you're down on film. Like, oh man, if you're up on, you know what I mean? It's like, you just seem very natural. And I think your numbers totally reflect that too, because you get really good numbers, and I think people can identify with that. Me, I'm just fake all the time, everywhere. So fake. I'm so fake. I'm clear.
Well, I appreciate that. One thing I'm curious too about, because I know I've heard the story throughout the years, watched a lot of your content. I still to this day really miss the short-lived Ghetto Manga podcast.
Oh, the Ghettomation. Yeah.
Ghettomation podcast. I love that. You guys are awesome together, all the people who were involved in that. And another thing that Kevin Cross was involved in, he's like was involved with all the things.
Yeah, I know. All things through Kevin.
Yeah. And then but the process as far as the actual like how you make the animation. Now I know that you've talked about like, you know, a lot I mean, a lot of this is pretty much almost like paper cut, like still images that you draw, and then you kind of do cinematic tricks really to animate it. It seems like, and sometimes you even do different motion things and stuff. So are you using like what, Photoshop and like a video editor pretty much, or?
Yeah, it's very simple. That's another thing too. I keep my tools really simple. Right now, as of the last 4 or 5 projects, they're totally digital. Like I don't use a sketchbook anymore. I know that's sacrilegious, but it's all done in Procreate on the iPad. And then I dump that into my computer into Photoshop. And then sometimes I'll manipulate stuff and change colors a little bit in Photoshop, but lately not as much. But I needed to be in Photoshop because that's where Flash works directly with Photoshop. So that's like my translator from Procreate. You dump it into Photoshop, and then from Photoshop, you're able to use Flash and pull that file, upload Photoshop file into Flash, and it saves all the layers. And then I animate things around in there, but I do everything, like at the mouths and the blinks and the eyeballs and everything. That's already pre-drawn from Procreate. And then I reuse art a lot too. I reuse heads. Like I'll draw like a front, side, back, and then sometimes a 3/4 view, and I'll just manipulate that. And then what's big too is shading too. Like if you add shadows to a scene, you can make the artwork look like, oh, he drew it for that scene, but it's really reused heads. Bodies, a lot of times I'll redraw the bodies, but the heads a lot of times I reuse. But it's about being practical and about finding a method that works for you, where the method isn't the roadblock. Yeah. The method is just like a side thing. Yeah. I see a lot of process videos, and I like process videos, but I notice that there's people that get really obsessed with their tools of, kind of pens they're using, kind of sketchbook they're using, and I think I understand, but it's almost like having a car where you just do videos where like, look at this tire tread, look at this in an hour on the tire tread, but it's like, do you drive your car? It would be nice to see you drive your car.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, right now I'm actually kind of taking this sort of course on like how to do the YouTube thing better and stuff. And, it's interesting because for pretty much, I mean, I've done, over like 850 videos on this channel, and like, and for the most part, I've either used, like right now, I do have like a webcam and a little like pretty cheap mic, but it makes it better than just, the laptop mic or whatever. So when I'm doing a live stream, I have that, but even this isn't like, it's the budget version of what you can get. And then, other than that, my other videos have all been pretty much created with whatever smartphone I have at the time, from the recording to the editing process, all on the phone. And it's like, now I have some money I could invest a little bit. Like I'm not obviously not rich or anything, but I have like a little bit more that I can use. And I'm like, should I buy like a camera? But then now this is going to like make the process take so much longer. Now I have to record it on a camera. Now I have to take that from an SD card and put it onto a computer and then edit it and then bring that out to this. And I'm like, I kind of just want to still do it on my iPhone, even though I have the chance to
totally. And you know what? I used to obsess with the length of films. I mean, people might not know it, but I would like be like, should this be a 5-minute cartoon or a 10-minute cartoon, or should this be a, and lately, the last few years, I kind of just, I still think about like, oh, this is going to be about a 20-minute cartoon rather than a 5-minute, but I don't say, shoot, this is going 22 minutes and I wanted it to be 20 minutes. To me, that's a big step. Like I've gotten past that a little bit. I would say this. And then when I would ask friends, they meant to help, but they never did, because they'd always tell me this. They'd always say, Jim, just make the cartoons as long as you want them to be. And I'd be like, that is the least helpful thing I've ever heard. Thank you. Because it's not good advice. You want somebody to just like tell you, like, don't be an idiot. Like, even if they say, don't be an idiot, just don't worry about it. Don't be an idiot. I'd rather hear that. But I'll tell you this. This is kind of like me telling you, Marshall, it doesn't matter what you film it on. It's what's in here. But truthfully, as a fan, it doesn't matter. And I'm saying this only not as a friend, but as a fan. It kind of doesn't matter. So you could invest a lot into a camera, or shoot it on your iPhone, or shoot it with the, as long as the content's good. If you were doing like glamour shots of your house and your car and stuff like that, then I might say, oh, you probably need an expensive camera. Yeah. But it's the content and it's the atmosphere that people are going to tune in for what you're doing now with this style stuff. Yeah. Right. So I would say just whatever's easier, take that energy and just use that energy to create new stuff, because you're doing it all. Just like me, you're doing it all. So
yeah, I agree. And that's honestly, that's pretty much why I've been like, I think I'm just going to stick with the phone,
if it works.
And it's just such a quicker process, I think, too. And it's like, if there's anything I'm limited on, it's time. That's always the thing. Like and even with the comics, it's like, well, okay, I have these, I want to be like my own version of J.R.R. Tolkien. I have these grand ideas and this and that. And it's like, well, you don't have the forever resource of time. You have this much time. Yeah. So make the size comic that you can make within this much time. That's your resource. Use your resource,
Yeah. And your gas tank will tell you what you can do and what you can't do. If you wanted to do a 350-page story and you got it 26 pages in and you're like, oh, I'm tired, then that's going to dictate, it's going to be a 30-page instead of 300 pages. And that happens to me too when I do stuff. It's like, that's why I decide ahead of time, like, this is probably going to be a long here's a little cheat. There's 2 projects I did. All That Glitters, the one about the Brett Vian rappers, and one called The Mind of Lars Lazarus. Both of those were done as series first. I did them in little 3-minute chunks, and then I put all those chunks together, and I had 2-hour-long movies. What I did though is, to be fair, I did go in and I added a couple scenes and I moved things around to make them work like movies. But the bulk of the stuff was just chipped away over time as a series. And that was a really smart thing to do, because then I now have 2-hour movies when I didn't sit down to do it as a 2-hour movie, or an hour movie each, because then I might have been like, oh, I'm tired.
So you kind of tricked yourself into
it. But I wouldn't probably, I don't, like, after doing the second one, I think I scratched that itch. In fact, it was like raw, like the skin was like peeled away, because I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done doing that for now.
Yeah.
But it's like little things like that, can you build a mountain by just little scoops of sand, but people don't want to do that. They want to go out and get the big giant, bulldozer and just, do it all at once.
That's the thing too, is like, and I mean, I have to always credit, once again, Kevin Cross, 100 Days of Making Comics, like, that changed my life. It literally changed my creative life, similar to how learning that you shouldn't you don't need to have beautiful drawings in your sketchbook. Like the most worst drawings you could possibly ever make, those need to go in that sketchbook. You need to just churn it out, churn it out. So, but 100 days of making comics, like every day for a half an hour, is the mantra, every day for at least a half an hour a day, work on my creative project, and I took that to heart. I did the 100 days like 2, 3 times till it was like, okay, this is silly. So I'm just going to do this every day. Did that for like 2 years, and now I'm kind of took a hiatus sort of. And now I'm coming back and I'm like, oh man, this is so hard. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just got to work on it a little bit every day. Like that's what I did before. That's what works. That's how I actually get stuff finished. And like you said, one little bite at a time. It's totally true. Even Josh is reiterating that, and I do want to give a shout out to Josh too, because he was part of the movie, this Pleasure Beast as well, right?
Yeah, he played the chapter. He played the pastor, the cool pastor. He says, what Josh said, chunks is ideal. That's going to be the new hashtag.
Yeah.
Chunks is ideal. Hashtag chunks is ideal. No, Josh played the cool pastor. He was awesome in it. We had so much fun recording it. Just a lot of laughs, and he was perfect. And when you go watch Pleasure Beast, look for Pastor Kyle. That's yeah. But the cool chunky pastor he wrote.
Whoops.
Chunky chapter.
We're going off on that one.
So lightning says, Marsh, I have a question.
Yeah,
I don't see the question.
Go for it, man. And as we're kind of landing the plane, I guess. I don't know. This is talking about like working with Josh and other people, and we'll get to the question as well. What is that like collaborating? Because I mean, I think you've collaborated even from the beginning. You've done a lot of stuff with collaborating.
Yeah.
But it just seems like it feels like such a big project, and it could get so messy. But like, you just do like all these random collaborations. I'm just curious a little bit how that works.
This is going to be the best part of the whole night, this interview, because I'm going to quote Lonnie Millsap, my friend Lonnie, because he brought this up, and then we were laughing because he said, it's like Prince. You're like Prince. Because when Prince first started, he played every instrument and did every voice on his albums. He did everything. And then he hooked up with The Revolution and started doing stuff with them. And then he kind of got sick of The Revolution and started doing stuff by himself a little bit. And then he found a whole new group of people, but he kept a few members of The Revolution. And then he died at the end. No, but I was kind of at first, I did everything, and that was like a sense of pride. And I'm talking when I first started doing animation. I had a public access TV show, and I had maybe 2 collaborators. Neeson was one. He did the vocals with me. My cousin Mike, we used to record music together, so he would record some of the music with me, and that was pretty much it. I did everything else. And then as time went on, I'd pick a collaborator here, pick a collaborator there, stick with them. And then I met people like Charlie Rossman and Lisa Copenaver and Tom Racine and Deacon Burns and Matthew Warren, just tons of people. And actually, I think that has been the greatest thing in the last like 10 years creatively for me, has been working with other people. It's the opposite of if I was ever afraid of at one point, like, oh, it's not going to be as good. It's the opposite. To me, it's better. It adds a whole new life, because everybody that I work with, stuff's kind of designed for them. That's another thing too. So like Pastor Kyle was designed for Josh. When I created Pastor Kyle, I had nobody else in mind to play it but Josh. Like that was going to be Josh. Same thing with the main character named Lee Diablo. Nobody else was going to play it but Charlie, and that's specifically to those, if Charlie was suddenly like, I hate you and I'll never work with with you again, because that's how Charlie talks. If Charlie was gone, and I would have had to redesign Lee Diablo, it wouldn't have been the same. So I love collaborating with people, and I'm going to continue to do it.
That's awesome. So we have the question. I'm going to show two parts of it, and I'll have you take a shot at it, Jim, first, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
So first, Lightning says, "What's your best advice for creativity?" And I asked him to be more specific, and he said, "I mean, if you want to make a small story, what makes it creative?"
I honestly thought you were going to say, ask him to be more specific. And he said, "What's your best advice for creativity, Marsh?" I really thought that was coming from him.
Nice.
Okay. So if you want to make like a small story, and what makes it creative? Okay. In my opinion, I would say to follow your own gut feelings of joy in the story. And if you have a story about a samurai and all of a sudden you're like, I keep thinking of penguins, I put a penguin in it. Don't try to force stuff. Don't try to copy other people's stuff. Like, well, it has to be this because it's in that genre. Just whatever makes you happy. And then here's another little trick too that will really help with creativity. Kind of use the world around you as a muse. Like if you go outside to get the mail and you see, a lady in curlers pushing a baby bear in a shopping cart, and that's something in your mind's like, you know what? Instead of a baby bear, it's going to be like a battle cart, and it's going to be a bear driving the battle cart. Like kind of riff off of real life.
Yeah.
That's one great thing about being in LA too, by the way, because you see everything. But yeah, just riff off of real life and don't be original. I should have just said be original and then drop the mic. Be original. Be original.
Oh,
that was a long-winded way of saying it.
That's horrible.
Be original. You go, Marsh.
Well, I would say no, I mean I agree. I like that one you were saying about riffing off of real life, because that's, I mean, I like to do that just in general anyways. Like if you're sitting hanging out at having dinner with somebody and you're like, you see somebody doing something funny and you're like, you're like, I bet, like, what if this person was this and they're really like a secret agent, and the reason they did that was because of this, or like,
yeah,
I sometimes riff out just for fun, just something to talk about, but I think you totally can do that. Blow whatever you see out of proportion.
And don't censor yourself too much. Don't censor your ideas. Don't go, well, that's too wild or whatever. Because think about it, there's a billion other people creating, so you want to do what's you and what stands out the most. So yeah.
And I think what you're saying too about be original, because to me I feel like saying be original is like, what does that mean exactly? But you said what it meant before you said it. But I'm thinking like one thing that makes me think of is like, there's certain people like in hip hop, for me, like I'm a big 90s hip hop guy. When Nas came out, everybody started being like a version of Nas. Like after that, like same with Rakim before that. And like now with comics, you guys all with comics, not again 90s, Jim Lee, he came out with his style. Everybody was a Jim Lee clone after that. Like, but then you have, people who are doing stuff that's like way off the wall different. And that is actually the thing that stands out, like the Max. Like there's all these Jim Lee clones, but there's, Sam Keith, and it's like, what planet did he just walk off of? Like, but it sticks out. And he had an animated TV show and he had the Max, and I'm not saying he was necessarily, it's not about being wildly successful, but it's like you said, following that muse and letting it kind of be free to be what it naturally is. I feel like so those are my favorite artists, usually the ones that kind of just strike out and just do something kind of different than what the current is doing, you know.
So Gary Hodges says, in my opinion, reject your first 3 ideas, and in my opinion, go with your first idea. So I'm going to reject you 3 times, Gary Hodges. I reject you. I reject you. I reject you. So
Wow.
no, I've never tried that, Gary, to reject my first 3 ideas because I am way too, believe it or not, lazy. I am. I don't. That's why I don't do scripts with my own stuff because I'm lazy. I don't want to sit down and type. Plus, yeah, I'm A plus. I'm me. You know what I'm saying? A.
I love it.
Gary is rebuked. Yes.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because I think you and I actually have a lot of that kind of thing in common because I'm the same way. Like I've always heard that, especially with character design, like, you know, don't go with your first design. Go, you know, do 20 of these first, and then you might come close to a good idea, and then work on that, and then do versions of that, and I'm like, I don't got time for that. Like,
Yeah.
I just make my thing. Usually, it's the first thing that pops in my head. Not usually. A lot of times it is. Sometimes I will. Like sometimes that idea isn't that good, you know, and I have to be
Yeah.
all right. Let's try again. Let's try again. But I just keep working until, like, it might be the second or the third or the fourth, but it usually doesn't go much beyond that, and I just kind of work till, okay, that's it, that's good enough, that let's do that. You know.
Yeah. My comfort zone is my kryptonite. Like I really do. Like if I was using a pen, I'd stick with a pen. Not because like I have to use this kind of a pen, because I'm lazy and I don't want to adapt to another style. Like I've already done this. And now I have a little style right now. When this computer that I'm on right now stops working, I'm gonna have to adapt my style. I'm gonna have to get a new computer one day and figure
Mhm.
out, you know, the new flash and all that stuff or new method. But then I'll adapt to that eventually. But I comfort zone is definitely, I get
Yeah.
very comfy in my
So
creation methods.
if you want to be a good artist, do what Gary Hodges says. If you want to be a productive artist, do what we say. No. No, if you want to be, because I don't know, Gary's probably very productive, but but like, I don't know, like, it's just, I think it's very personal, you know, and it has to do with your level of laziness, I guess. So.
Let's rephrase that. Let's say if you want to be a good artist, do what Gary Hodges does. If you want to be a great artist, do what Gary Hodges.
Yes. Nice.
Poor Gary, he's getting, yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Oh, Leanne brings up a good point too. This is true. I resisted the iPad very, very strongly
Mm,
for a long, long time. I didn't want to get one. I was the last of my friends to get one,
mhm.
and finally, when I did, even when I got it, I had buyer's remorse immediately. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is I have 10 sketchbooks I haven't even opened yet." And then slowly I started working on it, and then you were, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And then even within then, I built, like, I found a pen, a little electronic pen that I use, and I saved it, and I'm like, "This is, oh yeah." And then now it's like I use nothing but that. Although
Mhm.
I could go back to sketchbooks in an instant, but I love working on the iPad now. I really
You know,
do.
and the thing is I started to dip into that world. I used a couple drawing tablets, for a little while, and, you know, I finally did get the iPad, and I was resisting the digital too, for a long time, but when I finally got the iPad, I was like, "This is kind of fun, actually. This isn't bad." You know, I actually kind of enjoyed it, and I still love drawing on paper, but there is, I guess the thing to me is, like, I work in Clip Studio Paint, generally, and just being able to, like, quickly, like, if you draw something and it's way out of proportion, and you, on a physical paper, you have to, like, erase it, do whiteout, start all over. Like, it's a lot harder to fix a mistake, or if you make a mistake inking, it's harder to fix a mistake. Whereas, and this is almost the detriment too of digital, but with digital, it's like just lasso to it, tool it, and, you know, shrink it, or enlarging it or whatever. And it for me it helps, as long as you don't get too picky with it, because you start getting too picky and you'll be there all
There's too
day.
many choices. It's like when you record and you have a choice of 89 snares.
Yeah.
It's like you'll be there all day going, nope, this one, no, this one, no, tighter snare. Yeah.
When was how often was Ringo sitting there trying different snares?
Snares. Bring in another snare, snare boy. And the snare boy comes and puts it in. Tight, no, too tight, snare boy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm the same way, because like again, you kind of make beats and stuff, so like that's what I do, and I'm like, I'll just use the same drums every time. It doesn't matter, like, and I can put effects on it later or something if I want it to sound different. But
so little self promotion. The soundtrack for Pleasure Beast just came out today.
Oh, sweet!
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's on Spotify. I think you can listen for free on YouTube and Spotify and all that stuff. It's everywhere. iTunes. You just can't avoid it. It's everywhere. No, but I listened to it. And I'm like, oh shoot! I started that song too soon. Like there's no lead in on that one song. But you know what? I'm letting it go. Same thing with Lars Lazarus. If you listen to Lars Lazarus, I think there's a couple songs on there where it doesn't. There's like 20 seconds of dead air at the end of the song because I didn't clip it. But I just, you know what? It's out there, and I don't care. I let it go. So to quote another famous animation, let it go.
Yeah, there you go. There's another there's almost a little punk rock like rebellion type thing with me in that same thing you're talking about with the music. Like recently I've been thinking about that. I'm like, well, I have a DistroKid account, which
me too
means that I can put anything on Spotify if I want.
Yeah, why not? I've just been flooding that thing with. I don't even know. Have I made a penny? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's like, and I'm like, I don't like. I can use, because the thing is sometimes I run out of storage on my phone to keep even my own songs. I'm like, well, I won't run out of storage if I just put it on Spotify. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you started using it like
mixed and mastered very well. Like
it's like my Dropbox. Yeah, I'll start leaving memos to myself. Hey Jim, remember idea for cartoon and put up on Spotify. Yeah, so unlimited bandwidth.
I can do whatever I want, so maybe I will.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I like that. I think we're two like minds when it comes to creative stuff like that. I'm very happy, by the way, for your websites. I've watched the website grow over the last few years. I mean, a website, it sounds so old. Your whole AOL, I love it. But
every time I dial up.
Yeah. But no, I've watched your YouTube channel. So it's just explode, and that's so cool. And I'm telling you, man, it's because you're genuine. There's not a lot of pretense with you. I like that, because I've seen there's been episodes where I'm like, wow, that's pretty brave. Like you're talking about having a hard time about something like that, and I'm like, that's so good, like so helpful to people.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I kind of can't help myself, I just.
Well, it's not every week, so too. That would be if it was like the 15th week in a row. I'm like, he's still down. That would be hard to watch, but it's not. I mean, it's just like life. It goes up, it goes down, it goes. Yeah. But I think I like the genuineness of your. And I really do think people identify with that. I think that's another why you've had success too.
I know I do. Like when somebody is like kind of just acting like they're like everything works, everything's perfect, and there's certain like even YouTubers or whatever, and it's like, I get it, I get the side of professionalism, you want to put your best foot forward, but I feel intimidated. I feel less likely to kind of act on whatever it is they're teaching or showing. And yeah, it's really helpful, like when you show both sides. So yeah, I appreciate that. And
I really cool. I can't identify with fakeness. Hang on, let me blow my nose. Oh man, this is only a 20.
Oh man, it would have been better if it was 100.
Snare boy, where's my snare? Bring it to me.
Yes. Well, and that's what I love about the comic slash just creative art community and stuff. You know, a lot of us, we just kind of are friends and we're making stuff together and showing each other. Basically, that's what I feel like YouTube is half the time, anyways. So,
Yeah.
all right, man. Well, I just everybody like you guys got to check out that link in the description. You know, Pleasure Beast is awesome, and then continue to watch the more playlists of Jim Lujan stuff because I don't know, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I've enjoyed many of Jim Lujan's animations. For
I
sure.
got to figure out a way to get people like a primer or something because I got so much material. Just dive in, you'll find what you like. Oh,
Well, I mean, that's the thing too. If you go to like the very first videos, they're just as awesome as like the new ones. Like, I mean, you've obviously honed your craft and stuff a little more, but they're all funny. They're all good.
it's like music. Listening to a band's early stuff could be just as good as sometimes it's better than the new stuff.
Yeah.
But and thank you to I have 3 new patrons. Thank you to my 3 new patrons in the last 24 hours.
Awesome.
Each of them giving me $75,000 each. So
hey, you know, you might be able to make a living off of that.
I asked for 80. I'm a little upset, but no, I always say this for anybody that ever wants to hook me up on Patreon. To me, it's more of a numbers thing. I don't mean numbers and money. I mean like I've got this many patrons, and I don't care if they give a penny. It doesn't even matter. It's just it's kind of like I guess you could say it's an ego thing. Would you say that? I don't know. It's or a validation thing, or just like whatever. But I'm very appreciative, and I do exclusive stuff for them, and so thank you. And I really, really do appreciate it. So thank you.
That's awesome. So there you go. Go to his video, find that Patreon link, and I'll put it in the show notes for the people watching on the replay. And you know, do it. Help a brother out. And enjoy some awesome cartoons. So with that, thank you, Jim. This was fun for sure. And you know, of course, anytime you want to come on, I'm happy to have you on. It's always fun chatting with you. And thank you everybody for watching.
Where can I watch Pleasure Beast? Good question. Yes. If you go to jimlujan.com, that will lead you to my YouTube channel, and it's on the front page of my YouTube channel. You can watch it there. Also on Facebook, I think it's Facebook /Jim Lujan Animation or something like that. But if you go to jimlujan.com, that's the easiest way to find it.
Cool.
It was worth being rebuked.
Yes.
I will unrebuke thee, Gary. You are unrebuked.
It's like if you're a fan of anything, like if I you know, somehow came across, you know, Michael Jackson when he was alive and he smacked me with that white glove, I'd be like, never wash my face. Like
just remember this. Gary, the Monkees, Jim, the Beatles. There's room for both, right, Gary? I think he'd agree. I think Gary would agree to that. Totally. I could feel him nodding his head.
Yes. Awesome. All right, guys, that was great. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you on the next one.
Thank you, Marsh. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank you, Gary.